In this video, we are going to look at the negative forms of be. We're going to look at the negative forms of be. So, for example, I am not a teacher. We're looking at the negative forms. So, first example, I am not a doctor. Nope, I am not. I am not a doctor. So for the negative form, we add the word not. So we put not after the form of be. I am not a doctor. Contraction. What about contractions? For I, the contraction is I'm not. Only one contraction. I'm not. I'm not a doctor. Okay? Now, what about you? Right? You are not a doctor. You are not a doctor. That is negative. You are not a doctor. What about contraction? How do I make a contraction for this? There are two ways to make this a contraction. The first, we can say, you're not. Similar to affirmative. You're a student. You're not a doctor. So that's one way. Or we can make a contraction with the two words, are and not. We take are and not and we smush them together, are not. And when we put them together, right, we put them together, we take away the O and we put an apostrophe. So what does that make? Here, you aren't, with the apostrophe, right? So you aren't a doctor. Okay, pronunciation, aren't. You aren't a doctor. Okay? All right, let's continue. Make sure I have my pen. And next, what about she? She is not a doctor. Again, not, right? To make it negative, not. She is not a doctor. The contraction form, she is not a doctor. She's not a doctor. One form, she's not a doctor. The second form, she isn't a doctor. She isn't a doctor. So remember, like aren't, I can, oh, sorry, students, I can, right, put the words together, eliminate the O, and add the apostrophe. She isn't, right? She isn't a doctor. Isn't. So pronunciation, isn't. She isn't a doctor. Okay. So in the same way, right? What about he? He. The same, right? He is not a doctor. Only change she to he, right? He is not a doctor. So contractions, the contractions. He's not a doctor, or he isn't a doctor. He's not a doctor, or he isn't a doctor. So similar to she, right? Isn't. Okay. But it. Similar to he and she, right? So it is not a city. It is not a city. So contraction, it's not. It's not a city. Or it isn't a city. It isn't a city. Okay, are you getting this? What about we? We saw you. Remember you? Similar. We are not doctors. We are not doctors. Remember, two contraction forms. What are the contractions? We are not doctors. We're not, or we aren't. We're not, or we aren't. We're not doctors, or we aren't doctors. Okay? Keep going. You. Again, you. Here, you, right? Plural. You all. Many people, you. Like you, my students. You are not teachers, right? You're students. You are not teachers. So contraction form. You're not teachers. You're not teachers. Or you aren't teachers. Okay? You getting it? One more. They are not teachers. They are not teachers. Contraction? What is the contraction? They're not teachers, or they aren't teachers, right? They aren't teachers. Okay? So for most of the forms of be, there are two ways to make negative contractions, right? But I am different. I only has one. I'm not. He, she, it, we say isn't, or he's not, she's not, it's not. Okay? And then we have you and we and they. You, we, they aren't. Or you're not, we're not, and they're not. Okay? Let's do a little practice and review together in the video. Here we have the women nurses. Isn't or aren't. Careful reading. The women, hands off. The women isn't nurses. The women aren't nurses. Women, singular, or plural? One or many? Another clue? Say, I don't remember, Jennifer. Woman, women. Look here. One nurse or more than one? Okay, so the women aren't nurses. Remember, women is plural. Women is plural, right? Woman with an A, right, is singular, one. Okay, so now let's look at contraction and affirmative, saying yes. The women aren't nurses, but yes, doctors. What's the sentence? The sentence is, they're doctors, using a contraction. They're doctors. No contraction, okay. They are doctors. Okay, let's do a few more. Okay, this girl, a teacher. This girl isn't, this girl aren't. How many? This girl isn't a teacher, right? One, he or she. Well, girl, so she. She isn't a teacher. Student, yes. Yes, student. So sentence using contraction. Sentence about her as student. We say she's a student. Okay. Going a couple more. All right. This animal, a dog. This animal isn't a dog, right? It, one. This animal isn't a dog. Okay, affirmative, cat, right? This is a cat, yes? Okay. So sentence with it and contraction. It's a cat. Okay. Are you getting it? One more. Oh, no, that's it. Okay. Now you can practice. Do the activities that I sent you to continue practicing the forms of be, contractions, and negatives. See you next time.